In 241, Shapur I ascended to the throne of the Sassanian Empire as the son of Ardashir, the empire's founder. Ardashir had overthrown the Parthian Empire, laying the foundations of the Sassanian dynasty and re-establishing a centralized authority in Iran. This powerful legacy not only provided Shapur with a strong starting point for his reign, but also placed upon him the responsibility to advance it further. At the time of Shapur's ascension, the Sassanian Empire was on its way to becoming one of the most powerful states in the Middle East. However, this strength could only be maintained and expanded not just through internal reforms and the consolidation of central authority, but also by pursuing shrewd strategies in foreign policy. Following the path set by his father, Shapur took both military and diplomatic measures to expand the empire's borders and turn it into a superpower of the era. When he took the throne, the political dynamics in the Middle East and surrounding regions were highly complex. To the west of the Sassanian Empire lay the Roman Empire, and these two great powers were in constant struggle over strategic regions like Mesopotamia and Armenia. The Roman Empire, particularly during the reign of Gordian III, sought to exert pressure on the Sassanians. However, Shapur mounted a successful resistance against Rome, notably defeating the Roman army at the Battle of Misich, which led to Gordian's death. This victory not only secured the western borders of the Sassanian Empire, but also greatly enhanced Shapur's political prestige. In the east, the Sassanian Empire extended as far as the borders of India, where relations with the Kushans were of critical importance. Shapur secured the trade routes in India, thereby strengthening the empire's economic power. Additionally, in Central Asia, he had to maintain peaceful and balanced relations with Turkic nomadic tribes, as threats from these regions were significant both economically and militarily. When he ascended the throne following his father's death, Shapur was a young yet experienced leader. During Ardashir's lifetime, Shapur had accompanied his father on many military campaigns, mastering the art of warfare and state governance. His rise to power was not merely a change of leadership, but also marked an acceleration of the Sassanian Empire's expansionist policies. The Sassanian Empire had gained a strong foundation thanks to the successes of its founding ruler, Ardashir I. However, the solidity of these foundations was not sufficient for the empire's long-term stability. While Ardashir had initiated the rise of the Sassanians by toppling the Parthian Empire, there remained significant resistance, particularly among the Parthian-origin local aristocracy and the eastern tribes. The early years of Shapur's reign were marked by intense military campaigns aimed at eliminating these internal threats and reinforcing central authority. Shapur first took action to weaken the power of the Parthian nobility by advancing his father's reforms and further strengthening central authority. In this process, he established garrisons in several key cities that had remained from the Parthian dynasty, ensuring that local authorities remained loyal to Sassanian rule. Military campaigns were particularly concentrated in Khuzestan, Fars, and Media regions. Shapur did not rely solely on military force. He also integrated some nobles into the Sassanian court by assigning them positions, thereby attempting to incorporate them into the central administration. This dual strategy both suppressed rebellions and allowed him to establish a pragmatic balance with the aristocracy. In addition to the resistance from the Parthian aristocracy, the tribes in the east also challenged Sassanian rule. The partial control over the eastern borders established during Ardashir's reign became uncertain again upon Shapur's ascension to the throne. Various tribes settled in eastern Iran and present-day Afghanistan occasionally launched united or independent uprisings against Sassanian authority. Groups such as the Saka and the Kushans posed significant threats. Shapur systematically organized his campaigns in the east. He first secured the eastern borders through campaigns against the Saka. Subsequently, he turned his attention to the Kushan Empire, which controlled the trade routes extending into the Indian subcontinent. Following wars with the Kushans, the Sassanian Empire gained control over vast territories stretching to the Indian borders, which bolstered the empire's economic power. During this period, the Sassanian Empire also achieved ideological unity by adopting Zoroastrianism as the state religion. Shapur collaborated with religious institutions to strengthen both religious and political authority. However, he also showed flexibility regarding religious tolerance. His allowance for the spread of Manichaeism enabled different religious groups to coexist, which became one of the factors that solidified internal stability. In 238, Roman Emperor Gordian III ascended to the throne and launched a major campaign aimed at halting the growing influence of the Sassanian Empire and its expansion in Mesopotamia. Despite his young age, Roman sources indicate he was 19 when he embarked on the campaign. Gordian assembled a large army and advanced eastward along the Euphrates River. According to Roman sources, this army consisted of approximately 70,000 to 80,000 soldiers. Composed of legions, the force aimed to reinforce Roman garrisons in Mesopotamia and neutralize the Sassanian threat. The Roman army encountered Sassanian forces near the Euphrates River, and the battle took place in a region known as Misich. Despite the size of the Roman army, Shapur made masterful preparations before the battle to gain a strategic advantage. The Sassanians were particularly renowned for their cavalry. And in this battle, the army primarily consisted of heavily armored cavalry, known as cataphracts, and light-mounted archers. The Roman army, on the other hand, traditionally consisted of infantry legions. The Sassanians managed to lure the Roman army into a narrow area that restricted their mobility. Here, Shapur set up an ambush formation that enveloped the flanks of the Roman army, effectively neutralizing the Roman infantry. After weakening the Roman legions with harassing attacks, the Sassanian cavalry delivered the final blow with their heavily armored units. The most critical moment of the battle was the death of Gordian. Ancient sources provide differing accounts of how Gordian died. Some sources claim he was killed on the battlefield, while others suggest he was murdered by his own soldiers during an internal mutiny. However, in the victory inscription prepared by Shapur at Nakshi Rustam, it is stated that Gordian was killed directly in battle. After Gordian's death, the Roman army was left leaderless and retreated. Philip the Arab, who quickly ascended the Roman throne, was forced to negotiate a peace treaty with the Sassanian Empire. At that time, Rome, struggling with internal turmoil and political instability, had no other option. Under the harsh terms of this agreement, Rome agreed to pay a substantial indemnity to the Sassanians. While sources do not specify the exact amount of this indemnity, Sassanian records claim it was a large sum. Some strategic regions in Mesopotamia came under Sassanian control. These regions were critically important, particularly for the trade routes around the Euphrates River. Philip diplomatically recognized Sassanian dominance, which significantly increased the Sassanian Empire's prestige on the international stage. Following this agreement, the Roman throne changed hands 3 times until 253. That year, Valerian ascended to the Roman throne and adopted an aggressive stance against the Sassanians along the eastern borders. The border conflicts continued until 260. The Sassanian forces were quick to respond, launching raids beyond Mesopotamia into key Roman cities such as Antioch, Seleucia, and several important cities in northern Syria. The sack of Antioch in particular was a significant blow to Roman prestige. In response, in 260, Valerian gathered a large Roman army and advanced toward the vicinity of Edessa. Edessa was a city of both strategic and religious importance, and was one of the key points of Roman presence in Mesopotamia. However, Shapur was prepared for the Roman army's advance. For the eastern campaign, Valerian assembled a massive force of around 80,000 soldiers. This force consisted of legions brought from the eastern provinces of the Roman Empire and the Balkans. The Roman legions, Rome's professional soldiers, were composed of heavily armored infantry. These legions formed the backbone of the Roman war machine. Auxiliary units consisted of light infantry, cavalry, and archers. These troops were primarily recruited from local populations and Rome's allies. Additionally, small units from Armenian and Arab allies supported the army. Shapur prepared a powerful army of 50,000 soldiers to counter the Roman threat. The Sassanian army was traditionally composed mostly of cavalry units. Heavily armored cavalry, known as cataphracts, were entirely armored, with both riders and their horses covered in heavy armor. These units were highly effective in breaking through enemy lines. To wear down Rome's heavy infantry formations, mounted archers would carry out continuous harassing attacks. Furthermore, the Sassanians employed war elephants to both psychologically and physically challenge the Roman lines. These elephants were particularly effective in dispersing Rome's heavy infantry. The Roman army advanced through Anatolia, reaching Syria, where they established supply lines. When Valerian's army arrived in Antioch, they managed to repel the Sassanian forces and recaptured the city for Rome. Although this victory boosted Roman morale, Shapur avoided direct confrontation, retreating instead to devise a more strategic plan. The harsh and barren terrain of Mesopotamia strained the Roman supply lines. The Roman army had to rely on long logistical routes for supplies, giving Shapur an opportunity to gain tactical superiority. Rather than engaging in a direct battle, Shapur maneuvered to lure the Roman army into a strategic trap. The Sassanian army feigned a retreat in response to the Roman advance, drawing them deep into Mesopotamia. As the Roman army advanced further into Mesopotamia, Shapur began cutting off their supply lines. This made it difficult for the Roman forces to find food and water, leading to a decline in morale among the troops. According to sources, a plague outbreak began within the Roman army, causing significant losses among soldiers already in dire conditions. At Edessa, the Romans confronted the Sassanian forces and launched a direct attack. Sassanian mounted archers relentlessly rained arrows on the Roman lines, wearing down the legions. Rome's heavy infantry proved ineffective against these agile attacks. Valerian, in an effort to prevent the total annihilation of his army, sought to negotiate with Shapur. However, Shapur offered no concessions and personally captured Valerian on the battlefield. At Nakshi Rustam, rock carvings depict Valerian kneeling before Shapur, illustrating scenes that symbolized a great victory for the Sassanians and the humiliation of Rome. This triumph established absolute Sassanian dominance along the eastern borders and elevated Shapur's reputation to its peak both in the east and the west. Valerian's captivity further deepened the 3rd century crisis in the Roman Empire. This period was marked by military revolts, economic collapse, and barbarian invasions across various regions of the empire. It became known in history as the first and only instance of a Roman emperor being captured by an enemy. Following this event, relations between Rome and the Sassanian Empire became even more strained, and the struggle between the two empires continued in the centuries that followed. However, Rome's eventual recovery and internal conflicts within the Sassanian Empire kept this balance in constant flux. The Battle of Edessa became a significant milestone in the long-standing rivalry between these two great empires and the broader power struggles in the Middle East.